Hi everyone, Dr. Angie here. I hope you're all finding one thing to be thankful for today on this fabulous day in October. And I hope that you can be thankful for things that happened yesterday and hopefully tomorrow too. Well, I want to talk to you today about this book that I read 2020, last year, the early part of last year. Mind Hacking Happiness by Sean Webb. Let me tell you a little bit of some learning points that I have gotten from this book. I read this book at a time when I was, still going through some struggles with emotions because I had been sick and I wasn't able to work. It was really relevant to my past experiences and was whatever I was going through at that time early last year also. I would say that also things that led to me developing pericarditis. And that's the content for another video. Anyway, he talks about this section on the emotion of fear. He gives some relevant points here that I want to talk about because I believe that fears that I was having were impacting my health, even though my health wasn't that good at that time. Fears made it worse. So there's a quotation here from Marie Curie, who was a famous Polish-born, naturalized French scientist who discovered radium. And she says here, nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less. I thought that was really impactful. If we understand a lot of things more, we'll be less fearful of them. Now let me define what Sean Webb says about fear. He said, your fear is the emotional response that occurs when your mind perceives a threat to self. Now this threat could be real, or it could be just something that you're perceiving as a threat. But still your mind responds in the same way as if it is a real threat and it impacts your health. And fear is one of the big emotions that, whether we admit it or not, is a big part of making the decisions for a lot of people. And he talks about the 5 separate levels of fear, the severities of fear. It starts from concern, then cautious, then afraid or fearful, then horror or flight, then panic. And then, he is quite funny, and he says here there's a version of fear that goes beyond panic, which he personally calls spiders. Said spider level fear has no equal. So fear is one of the big emotions that underlies a lot of things that we see in society, a lot of responses that people have. And I believe a lot of health conditions that we see today are based on some fearful thought or something that happened that caused the person to be afraid and triggered the fight or flight response, which became chronic and caused physical conditions, actual disease in the body. The body responds severely to our emotions, like I said in my previous video. And I was reading something by the University of Minnesota, and they were talking about how fear actually, because it causes the flight or fight response, it actually causes a disruption in your gastrointestinal system. And I thought, yeah, definitely, because it's no wonder why there's so many GI conditions that we see, practicing in the clinic. There were so many of those that people came in with, abdominal pain, diarrhea, vomiting, and many times they can't really pinpoint it to any food or medication that they ate or took. And I believe that fear has been the underlying factor in a lot of negative things that we see in society these days. Okay, I'll give you examples of my fears. Before I stopped working in 2015, after I got really sick and I was struggling to keep up with the work, I did not want to stop working because, a lot of thoughts were coming to my head, a lot of fearful thoughts. I was thinking, now, if I stop working, how are we gonna, continue to pay our bills? We're gonna have struggles to pay our bills. We're gonna have to give up a lot of comfortable things in our lifestyle. And one of the biggest fears that I was having, which could be irrational, by somebody's standards, or something that I perceived was legitimate, was losing my skills as a physician. I know, you've spent a lot of years learning to become a doctor, and to have to stop practicing, that can bring a lot of fear to people. I know I'm talking from my experience, but I believe that it's the experience of some other doctors too who find themselves in certain conditions and they can't work. You have this fear that you're going to lose your skills. But after a while, you figure that you're taking a lot of courses, continuing medical education courses, and there are some practical aspects to some of these courses, and you end up realizing that you're not going to forget your skills. Now, all these fears contributed to me having elevated blood pressure or high blood pressure. Whenever I would go to a checkup with my doctor, I noticed that my blood pressure was higher than the time before. So, even in the article by the University of Minnesota, they were talking about how fear can impact your cardiovascular system, and your increase in blood pressure is part of that. And they also talk about fear negatively affecting your immune system. So your immune defenses go down. And fear also impacting the gastrointestinal system to the point where people develop autoimmune conditions like Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, which is something that I have observed. Now, what can I say looking back at Marie Curie's, her quotation from the book? I would recommend that anybody who's going through any kind of fearful situation, fearful thoughts, chronic fear, and having it impact your health, I would suggest you read this book. It'll give you a lot of insight into your emotions and how to develop emotional or a very strong emotional intelligence so that your actions are not continuously being dictated by fear. So what can I understand and apply to my life, or can help somebody about fear? Over the years, I've realized that my life experiences, as I understand them, are likely not new to the human race. Most likely some doctor somewhere or some person somewhere, you don't have to be a doctor, you don't have to be a health professional, but somebody somewhere has experienced what I have experienced. So my experience is not unique to the human condition, to the human experience. So, I can take comfort in the fact that somebody has experienced this somewhere, and got through it. Through prayer, through spending time with God, in meditation, in reading scripture. There are many things that you can do to mitigate that or help that experience not overwhelm you. There's a portion in the book where he talks about name it and tame it. Basically what he's saying here is that if you name the situation or the condition or the emotion that you're feeling right now, you tame the response that your mind and your body have to the situation. So if you have the fear that something bad is going to happen, let's say you're fearful that, or when your children go out, something bad is going to happen on the way to school, you name it, write it down, exactly what you're feeling, the fear or the worry or the anxiety, write it down and recognize that this is what you're feeling, and it's just a thought that comes to you, and you're gonna realize that the feeling, the emotion that you're feeling gets tamed, and you can go on with your life, and it doesn't have to rule and reign in your life and become a chronic problem. So this is just a little bit of what I want to talk about concerning fear and how it affects our bodies, our immune system. And I hope to talk more about the other emotions too. I look forward to diving a little bit more into the other emotions and how they affect our health. So anyway, I just thank you all for watching. Give this a like, subscribe if you like this content, share with your friends and family, and I hope to talk to you again next time when I come on and talk about our emotions again. Okay, thank you and have a good rest of your day. Bye.